direi di iniziare da quelli contro Johnny, visto che sono quelli secondo me che faranno più incazzare, quindi cerchiamo di finire con una nota positiva. Tutto bene, tanti baci a te, bello, spero tu stia bene.
In Mr. Depp's world,
In Mr. Depp's World inizia... quindi let's go.
in Mr. Depp's world, you don't leave Mr. Depp. And if you do, he will start a campaign of global humiliation against you.
Ma è quello che è successo a lui.
A smear campaign that lasts to this very day. He will do everything he can to destroy your life, to destroy your career. That
È successo
is
a lui?
what they're saying,
È
ladies and
successo, è successo a lui?
gentlemen. And that's what they're trying to get you, the jury, to be an accomplice to.
Ma che stronzo da dire sta roba qua.
It's not surprising, because Mr. Depp
Sto cercando di rendere addirittura la giuria complici della distruzione della vita di Amber. Mamma mia, si è fatto tutto da sola.
cannot and will not take responsibility for his own actions. It's always someone else's fault. Does the First Amendment give Ms. Heard the right to write the words that she wrote in this article on December 18th, 2018? That's the question. And you cannot simultaneously protect and uphold the First Amendment and find in favor of Johnny Depp on this claim. You simply cannot. You have to decide, should someone be able to write...
Avete visto la roba con la transizione bianca? Il tizio che diceva prima. Infatti c'è il watermark qui. Figo. Avete visto?
Protect and uphold the First Amendment and find in favor of Johnny Depp on this claim. You simply cannot. You have to decide, should someone
Figo.
be able to write an article like that in the United States of America without being sued successfully, without having to go through the hell that
Quando si sarebbe detto martedì si riuniranno, quindi probabilmente prossima settimana.
Ms. Heard has gone through. Think about every piece of evidence that you've heard over the last 6 weeks about his abuse,
Bravo
about
Elfo,
their
sì.
relationship. None of that is in the article. None of it. We all know that it would be a very different article if she had written
Non ridere,
about what she
cazzone.
suffered, that she's told you about over the last 6 weeks. Because he knows the words are true, Mr. Depp says that the words now
Ma sta a piedi nudi quest'uomo? A piedi nudi?
have a defamatory implication. He says the statements are the same as saying, Johnny Depp abused me.
Hanno una scarpa.
But just because he wants to make the article about himself doesn't mean it is. He has to show you that any defamatory implication was designed and intended. Look at number 4. Designed and intended by Ms. Heard to convey the defamatory meaning that he suggests. Just because people might read the article and remember, oh yeah, Amber Heard used to be married to Johnny Depp, and she accused him of abuse, that doesn't mean that she designed and intended defamatory implications in writing about herself. And think about it. If Mr. Depp is right, then virtually any statement that anyone could ever make about their own life that implies anything, implies any involvement with any other person, could be defamatory.
Ma è una grande cazzata questo. Perché si è fatto un intero processo per capire che invece sta la diffamazione. Ma che cazzata è da dire? Se Johnny Depp ha ragione, allora qualsiasi cosa può essere intesa come diffamazione. No, a meno che non sia vera. Quella non era vera, anzi, abbiamo notato che era un po' l'esatto contrario, che era Amber un po' da abusare. Ma come fa a dire una cosa del genere? È un po' strano da dire, boh.
And that's clearly not what the First Amendment intends. She didn't design and intend the words to be the equivalent of writing Johnny Depp abused me. And you don't have to take her words for it. You can take the words of Terrence Doherty of the ACLU. He said that the op-ed wasn't even Ms. Heard's idea. The ACLU wrote the first draft, and great care was taken in drafting the article so as not to make it about Mr. Depp or Ms. Heard's relationship with him. That's the only evidence presented about Ms. Heard's motive, except her statements that was exactly what she wanted to do. She wanted to talk about her experiences after Johnny Depp. Ms. Heard didn't write the headline. She didn't approve the headline. She had nothing to do with it.
Ma invece no, ha mandato video a tutti.
She was not given notice of the headline. She testified, you saw her testify about the sexual assault that she experienced at the hands of Mr. Depp. You saw her testify about that they're calling her a liar.
Beh.
You saw her on the stand testify with your own mouth, with her own mouth.
L'avete vista testimoniare con la vostra stessa bocca.
exactly what she went through. For the first time
Non riesce a stare in piedi sto tizio.
in court, because people who have suffered that, they don't want to broadcast that to the world. They want to penalize Miss Heard for not speaking about that earlier. That's ridiculous, and it's insulting, and it's just victim blaming at its most disgusting.
Rotterborn.
The only reference to sexual assault in the article, and you can read the op-ed, is sexual assault that she said she had experienced by the time she was of college age, before Mr. Depp. So there is a reference to sexual violence in that article, but it's not by Mr. Depp. And Mr. Depp can't hold her liable for a headline she didn't write.
Ma Rotterborn è qui. Ma sta anche facendo la testimonianza. È capace di bilocazione? Wow.
That contained something that had nothing, that was not
Fighissimo,
about
ragazzi.
TVB.
Grazie Calur, grazie mille dell'abbonamento. Comunque potentissimo Rotterborn, non sapevo.
him.
Si sapesse
And they want
bilocare.
you to think that she republished the headline. Republished the headline by tweeting out the link.
Vediamo,
to the
vediamo se lo
online
vedono.
version. So let's look at this. This is the tweet that she sent on December 19th.
Costano tanto gli avvocati,
The
merda.
hyperlink says, opinion Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence. That's the online version of the article. As Ms. Heard said, you can't attach, you can't tweet a piece of paper. So when she wanted
Cioè, wow, ma come cazzo fa? Grande. Così fa schifo in due po'. Grazie dei bits, Alfio.
to share that she had written this article, what choice does she have? She has to attach that link. And the jury instructions that you have make clear that a hyperlink is not republication. Forwarding a link on does not mean that you've broadcast the statement again, but that's what they want to make you think. The only way, and the jury instructions that you have, and we don't need to read through them in detail now, but the republication instruction says that merely linking to an article does not amount to republication, but adding content to a linked article may constitute republication. You must determine whether any added content was intended to reach a new audience, and if you find any content added to the hyperlink was intended to reach a new audience, it constitutes a republication.
Sembra che si stanno attaccando al niente, però effettivamente questa è la cosa più importante dove si devono attaccare, visto che tutto il trial è stato per diffamazione. Cioè, ha denunciato per diffamazione Amber Depp. Cioè, Johnny Depp ha denunciato Amber per diffamazione. Perciò devono veramente... Queste robe qua sono fisicamente, cioè letteralmente le cose che sono successe, quindi effettivamente, indipendentemente se chi abusa chi, comunque può vincere lei, perché se effettivamente non ci sono stati i minimi per diffamazione, può vincere lei, possono anche vincere entrambi, ho letto, può anche vincere lui, ma la giuria decide che non deve dargli 50 milioni ma meno. Anche se a mio modesto parere già tutto il trial è servito per ribaltare la situazione di Johnny. Secondo me questo è già importante.
There was no content added to the article. Let me be very clear. If Amber was abused by Mr. Depp even one time,
but women were challenging their rage about violence and including the political strength and special press coming forward from because compared to Congress were balancing the scales. Beh, comunque sia, ha ammesso che l'ha pubblicato lei.
then she wins. One time. Then she wins. If Amber was abused by Mr. Depp even one time, then she wins. One time. And we're not just talking about physical abuse.
Ma?
We're talking about emotional abuse,
Beh,
psychological abuse,
sono d'accordo,
financial abuse,
sono d'accordo.
sexual abuse.
L'ha fatto però anche lei, tantissimo.
That's what we're talking about.
Non che serva a nulla, capito? Questo è il rischio. Può essere che l'ha fatto anche lei, però il trial mi ha diffamato.
Let's look at the evidence. You heard Mr. Depp define abuse from his own mouth. He admitted all of that when he talked about his childhood. They're trying to trick you into thinking that Amber has to be perfect in order to win. Even while they're ignoring Jade.
Veramente Amber si vuole far vedere come la perfetta, non fa un cazzo di niente.
Mr. Depp's many flaws, but don't fall for that trick. Amber's not perfect. None of us are. She's never pretended to be, and that's not what you're being asked to decide. One time, ladies and gentlemen, one time. If he abused her one time, Amber wins. Actually, if he fails to prove that he never abused her one time, Amber wins. So let's take a look at some of the evidence. This was one of the first messages shown to Mr. Depp in his cross-examination. This is a message to Paul Bettany, his drug buddy, early on in their relationship.
Ciao Marcos, ci vediamo domani a Roma e ti do un dirmi qual è la differenza tra un igloo e Re Artù?
Allora, non c'entra veramente un cazzo. Re Artù è un re, già Re Artù è un tizio, re d'Inghilterra, grandi storie sono state narrate su questa persona qua. L'igloo è un'abitazione fatta di ghiaccio, presente principalmente in Antartica, quei posti là, no, in Eskimoland. Non c'entrano un cazzo, veramente, non c'entro veramente niente. Ci vediamo domani e mi darai un abbraccio.
When he says, let's burn Amber, let's drown her before we burn her, I will f her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she is dead.
Francesco Massia, grazie mille per i 6 mesi. Mua!
Some of the most vile, disgusting language that you could ever imagine.
Ma c'è di peggio.
That is what he said to her at the beginning of the relationship. So let's look at how the relationship was bookended. You remembered Mr. Depp the other day in response to some text that we'll see later saying, I don't write like that. This is a bookend of the relationship. This is after it was over. I asked Mr. Depp to read that top text. You'll remember that was the only thing I asked him to read, and he immediately said I didn't write that text, even though, of course he did. Even though he wrote the text under it that said, hopefully that rotting corpse is decomposing in the trunk of a Honda Civic. That's how he bookended their relationship.
Pat says.
Ladies and gentlemen, these words are a window into the heart and mind of America's favorite pirate.
Che strana frase. America's favorite pirate. Boh.
This is the real Johnny Depp.
Questo è pure girato.
Ladies and gentlemen, these words are a window into the heart and mind of America's favorite pirate. This is the real Johnny Depp.
You can't restore his reputation. You
La nostra preferita per niente fastidiosa. Let's go.
can't give him anything. They didn't tell you that, but the court told you that. And that's a very, very important thing here. He told his story. He had his opportunities. He had his full opportunities to do all of that. And he came in here and lied to you and said he's here to get his reputation back. It's just one of many lies in this case, but it's a really big one. Because here we are, 6 weeks of your time, precious time, 6 weeks of this court's time, for what? For nothing. Only to go after Amber. That's psychological abuse. He's going after Amber for nothing.
Beh, 50 milioni e carriera sono un sacco.
Because he wants to put her through this again. The third time.
Anch'io vorrei vedere la giuria, ma come sono fatti? Non si può. Perché immagino che se conoscessi anche una di quelle persone, vai là e la convinci. Sono un po' come chi banna su Twitch, no? Anzi, penso sia esattamente quella la roba. Però sì, vorrei vederla tantissimo. Come te le immagini? Io me li immagino bimbi. Sono tanti bambini. Secondo me quello là, no, è pirata, no, mamma. Non sto facendo critica o satira, me li immagino solamente così.
So we're fighting back, and that's the counterclaim. She finally has said enough. Enough. And we're asking you to finally hold this man responsible. He has never accepted responsibility for anything in his life. Once again, the next day, Johnny apologizes to Amber. He says in 2 different text messages, that's 772 and 773, he says, my profound apologies in one of them, and my apologies are eternal in the other one. What is he apologizing for?
Ma apologies are eternal? Che cazzo vuol dire, Johnny?
The next day, on May 22nd, if he didn't know that he did all of those things. She wasn't wearing any makeup. She was natural. She wasn't wearing a stitch of makeup. Every one of them says it. It's the exact same thing. Well, why would you say that? She's an actor. She's not going to go outside her house, without putting makeup on. And if she has bruises, why on earth, when she's been covering them up for 4 years, why on earth would she not put makeup on so that she would cover those up? Why on earth would she not want to cover up those bruises? It makes no sense. But you know what? You guys saw her here. You guys saw it. You saw Amber on the stand. There were days where she didn't wear eye makeup. A lot of people think that she's not wearing makeup when she doesn't have mascara and eyeliner.
Comunque, l'avvocatessa è bravissima quando ha tempo di parlare. Però ogni volta che faceva domande a Johnny o a qualcuno sembrava veramente in difficoltà. Però il suo carisma è palese, cioè si vede che ha una grande abilità. Mi sta piacendo un sacco adesso, ma quando c'è da fare domande o da gettare l'ancola per quella che è la ragione di Amber, non ce la fa tanto.
She has different looks, and some of them are with eye makeup and some of them are without. And people misunderstand, especially people that aren't that good at makeup, and a lot of men, frankly, go, oh.
In realtà sembra scarsa anche adesso. Beh, il tizio di prima balbettava un casino, almeno lei non sbaglia.
Oh, then she probably doesn't have makeup. And that's where that mistake happens. But you heard her testimony, and you heard her makeup artist testimony saying she doesn't go out of her room without concealer and foundation. She knows how to put these things in. And you saw Defendant's Exhibit 155, and you'll have the actual thing in there. That's the type of palette she used, and she was very adept at telling you what colors she puts on for the different days of bruises. This is a woman who for 4 years did everything she could to cover up anybody knowing anything about this abuse. Do you honestly
Pazzesco, sta dicendo quello che ha fatto Johnny.
think she's just going to walk around for the week with her bruises exposed? Of course she's not. If you do the math, Amber is entitled to at least 31.5. What does she take? $7 million. What does she do with the $7 million? She gives it to charity, or she intends to give it to charity. Now, they make much ado about the pledge versus donation, but both the corporate designees for ACLU and for Children's Hospital said donation and pledge are interchangeable. These are pledges. The ACLU corporate designee said you typically do pledges because of the tax benefits, and that's what she said. She pledged it over a period of time because of the tax implications to it and because she was getting paid over the time. Now, she started to make these donations, and you'll see that the first one was on behalf of Mr. Depp's business manager, Mr. White, actually sent the letters with the $100,000 for each of those. That was the initial ones.
E quando è
He was trying to
successo?
take credit for those, and in fact, both the ACLU and Children's Hospital got confused and gave the credit to Mr. Depp, not to Amber, for those. Then she made payments to both, and Elon Musk also made payments to both for $500,000 each, which she didn't count to her pledge, but they helped those organizations. At the end of the day, she's made $1 million in payments to them, but then she got sued here and hasn't been able to because she spent $6 million in attorney's fees.
Merda! 6 milioni di dollari in avvocati. Effettivamente sì. Anch'io sto spendendo un casino per quei mannaggia Dio di maledetti. Non gli avvocati. I mostri. I mostri del cassetto.
That is unrefuted. She still intends to pay those pledges, honor those pledges.
I diavoli,
She
grazie raga, grazie. I diavoli, sì.
said that throughout, and I elicited
Rotterborn vale 6 milioni? Beh no, ne ha 3. Rotterborn che si divide in 2, sa bilocarsi e lei, quindi ha 3 persone. Johnny ha loro 2 che parlano e mi sa anche loro 2 sono parte.
from both the ACLU and from Children's Hospital. They haven't expired.
A questo punto dove vedi la vera bravura di un avvocato, nelle altre circostanze se difendi un colpevole è complicato. Questo punto è il punto in cui capisci quando questo di quell'avvocato vale, ricordandosi che deve solo convincere una giuria di persone normali. Sono d'accordo.
She can pay them whenever she wants to, and she fully intends to. But she has to get out from under this first. They started to get Amber fired from Aquaman 2. They have continued to this day. They have followed her everywhere. Everybody has stopped wanting her. L'Oreal won't use her, even though they've kept her on from that time. She lost 3 different opportunities that were being discussed with her. The most significant part of that, though, is that Aquaman was the biggest blockbuster ever for DC Films.
Ah sì? Aquaman è il film che ha fatto di più della DC. Mi fate sta ricerchina, ragazzi, che mi sa che siete più bravi di Giovanna qua.
It was the biggest. It was over $1 billion. This was her
Ma
opportunity
veramente?
for her star. Even the experts from Mr. Depp admitted this was her blockbuster. This was her mega. But what happened
vero?
instead? As she's going through, as it's coming out, and in that 16 months they were going, well, nothing happened. Yeah, lots happened. She had 3 different.
Se è vero, 1 miliardo e 200 milioni. Ha fatto 1 miliardo, 2 miliardi. Beh, pazzesco, purtroppo è vero. Beh, non per il caso, ma per la gente. Ma che cazzo guardate Aquaman, imbecilli?
Film she was discussing, she got the L'Oreal contract, she got the stand, all of those things were happening because of Aquaman, and then everything shut down. She wasn't allowed to do publicity for the stand. She wasn't allowed to.
Bambi's a Nightmare. 13 mesi assieme. Grazie. 16.
She hasn't been allowed to do anything for L'Oreal. She got shut down from her charitable organizations. She ended up
Incassi ma
not
nel
getting
migliore, ok.
Amazon.
Beh, blockbuster vuol dire incassi, quindi hai ragione. Aquaman,
Aquaman
pessimo.
pessimo film.
Ma non hai sentito che è un blockbuster che ha fatto 60 miliardi?
They gave her a hard time about Aquaman 2. And instead of the career trajectory of the other comparators, who all went way up, and by the way, all the experts
Qua vediamo lei che assimila
admit
mana
that career
dal
trajectory
circostante.
went well for all the rest of them, and she's the only one that didn't have it. And the reason is because of the defamatory statements.
Beh, la seconda è stata più una roba etica di tutto quello che ha perso, ma il primo comunque ha parlato effettivamente del caso di diffamazione. Vediamo.